Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Floyd. Good evening, viewers, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you're tuning in from, to a much sort of delayed sort of Whiskey Tuesday, as opposed to being a Whiskey Friday. We really needed to talk about the crime statistics, especially after all the political nonsense that kind of followed them, and we'll unpack them in a minute. But before we get to the headaches, Floyd, it's good to see you on the show. It was a bit of a last minute awkward timing thing, but how are you doing, sir?
I'm good, and you?
Fan-bloody-tastic. And
That's great. That's
I
all we
know,
need.
look, I know you always bring the reality checks and the what should I put, the sort of the element of realism and real talk to this entire discussion. So thank you for taking time on your Tuesday evening to be here.
Yeah,
And it's going to be a
anytime.
good one. So I think, while we're waiting for more people to join, let me just say hello to everyone in the comment section. So Pew Pew Nando, good evening. Great to see you here. K9 Reaper. I think we're kind of on time. We're not quite Swiss rail, but we're close. Kermit, good evening to you. Richard, definitely blasting off. Grant Hockley, good evening. Floyd being in the comments of his own stream. We just lost his camera, but it's fine. He is still here. Lots to talk about, and I think especially, every time the quarterly crime stats come out, there's nothing really controversial, unexpected in them. They're always a bad story. There's seldom an improvement. And I think I'll explain in a minute why that's not surprising. But it's the usual people go, oh my God, look at the guns. The guns are the problem. And just give me a moment. And I'm going to bring some of the crime stats and the elements that we want to discuss about it up on the screen if this browser allows me to do it. I'm just going to go Brave browser and okay, doesn't want to do that. I've got another way of doing this because Google Chrome, we're on Google Chrome this evening, and Google Chrome is the enemy of the people, I think. Bloody Silicon Valley counter-revolutionaries. So we'll do this. Mind the time warp. Okay, lost permissions to do it. Screw it. I'll read it live. Okay, so we have massive increases in violent crime categories. This quarter, 2022 versus this quarter last year, we've had a 30% increase in cash and transit robberies. We've had a 23% increase in truck hijackings, a 14% increase in carjackings, an 11.5% increase in murder, and significant increases in attempted murder, commercial crimes, robbery with aggravating circumstances, and so on and so forth. So all in all, not a massive good story to tell pertaining crime prevention, crime trends. Also not surprising. We'll get to that in a minute. But Floyd, I'm going to hand over to you. When you saw these stats and when you heard the Cat in the Hat give us the full speech last week, sort of what are your thoughts and immediate reaction to this?
So, what's happening here? It's not much, It's just it's crime stats, but we need to look at the source of crimes. Unemployment is one of them. People are not employed, and people have no means of feeding their families. If you look at COVID-19, how many people have lost employment because of that? But if you look at shoplifting, for instance, are firearms used there? No. If you look at looting, which was a crime, are firearms were used there? No. When you look at white-collar crime, were firearms used there? Are firearms used there? If you look at frauds, do people use firearms there? No. You understand? So, accountability is one thing. Accountability is bad. People cannot account the real leaders, the real ministers. People need to account to these things and say, you know what, let us account. It's not this. Carjacking. Do people use firearms? Yes. Is it legal firearm owners who go and jack cars? No. You understand? So who are the guns? The guns are in the hands of who? Criminals. crimes like rape. When a person rapes, do they use a legal firearm? No, legal firearm owners don't use their firearms because they know they're going to be tracked. They know where the police know where to find them, so they'll track them down. So it's absolutely not it's absolutely not firearms, not legal firearms. It's illegal firearms. So where should the focus be? On illegal firearms. The Zamazamas, who are they using licensed firearms? No, they're using police firearms. You understand? So maybe we should say police should not have firearms.
So
And because
you're actually coming to exactly the point I'm trying to make. So I did a tweet today where I said, we should maybe stop referring to these things as illegal or unlicensed firearms and actually call them what they really are, which is government issue guns. And the reason I'm saying that is, by the way, it's here on my, it was here. I don't know what I did with that book now, but in any event, Mark Shaw's book, Give Us More Guns. Essentially, his investigation came to the conclusion that the government, the state, is the single biggest, by a long shot, supplier of firearms and ammunition to criminals and to gangs, far more than ordinary civilians could ever hope to be as a source, because they sell guns to criminals in bulk. You don't have to go house to house in suburban robberies, which is quite a high risk endeavor for people to do, for criminals to do, in order to hope that you get your hands on some guns. The state is willing to sell these things to you in vast numbers. Chris Prinzler by himself, just him alone, this is excluding any of his former or present associates and the guys that are still running this racket, sold 9,000 guns, at least 9,000 guns by himself to gangs. So we have an open armory system here. Floyd, if I had to say to you, here's a question. When we look at gun losses, civilians versus the state, that is reported every year, do they include losses from the SAP-13 locker in their reported firearm losses?
No, they don't. They don't. They have forgotten about themselves. Even crime as well. When they do these crime statistics, do they include the crimes by politicians? Do they include crimes by police officers? We don't know. Where are we here? So the numbers are not what they are. The numbers are actually higher than that. And it's the honest truth. We've got to be honest to each other. So it's not that. It's not the firearm that you lost, and the guns that get lost at the SAP-13. Who owns those firearms? It's civilians. It's people who were declared, who have been refused. People who are declared unfit to possess a firearm. So they declare unfit. They know they've got a buyer for your firearm. That's what they do.
Even worse, people who handed these things in for destruction. And this is how sordid the story is, Floyd. So there was a access to information request or a power request lodge with the SAPs about the annual losses out of the SAP-13 lockers. They could not provide a number. The reason for not being able to provide a number is they don't know, and it will require, figuring that out would require a complete audit of every single police station's SAP-13 to try and figure out what was in it, what's gone missing, and how it went missing. So they have absolutely no idea, and I'm more than happy to go out on a limb. And so we're probably getting tens of thousands of guns missing out of these SAP-13 stores across the country every single year that end up in criminal hands. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the cops lost, by their own admission, 9.5 million rounds of ammo in the last 6 years out of their own armory custody, which is far better monitored than the SAP-13. So if their own internal control over their guns and their ammo is that bad, then it's very rich coming from them going, oh, we're blaming this issue on guns. Our failure to police our society our incompetence, our lack of leadership, the level of criminal infiltration, the SAPs, our own criminal activity as police officers, our own corruption, and our own negligence with firearms and ammunition being the biggest contributor to this. We're going to blame the civilian gun owners, and we're going to keep clamoring for more restrictions on them, even though they're not remotely the problem. And in fact, even though they're the only people who are standing up against crime and violence in this country, where we're failing them. And I know that you were one of those guys that stood up to crime and violence last year during the July riots. In fact, you do it in your own community almost every day, if I recall correctly, Floyd. That is something you're passionate about.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you look at it, when you look at the whole thing, I mean, I challenge every DFO to do a stock take and say, this was crushed. Here's the proof. I mean, if you go, you got scrap metal here, and you're gonna go send it to be demolished, to be destroyed, whatever, and so it needs to be weighed, and we say, okay, this is plus minus 1 ton, and then we say this has been crushed and it's been demolished, and then we got you plus minus your ton. Then you can see, tell us, they can't do a stock take on this. They can't do a stock take on their own firearms. They own. And then you're like, who do you blame? You understand? Do you blame the spoon for getting fat because you're eating? You can't. You got to blame somebody. There's got to be some form of responsibility coming from someone. And if we were not, if the police leadership was not playing a blame game and saying, you know what, we've messed up here. Here we are. We are sorry. This is what happened. These crimes that have happened with these firearms that have gotten lost with us, or this is what we've illegally sold. I mean, when you book in a firearm, you get given a form that Gideon or Floyd handed over this. It was a Z88. It had a spare. It had 2 magazines. It had ammo. That ammo doesn't get crushed, doesn't get demolished. People take the ammo for themselves. It's 9mm barrel. So you take it for yourself, you take it home, and then you go crush the Z80. Oh, you look, I'm not going to crush this one. It's too beautiful. Let me take it out of the. That's what happens. So when it gets handed in, we see, oh, Floyd handed in. It was handed into detective or constable or Captain Partas, and then, so let's go. When we can't find it, let's go to say, hey, where's this? You received it. You understand? We think here there's a crime element that you've committed because you cannot prove where it is, and yeah, you've signed for it, and this person has handed in. They've signed for it that they gave it to you. So there isn't that some form of responsibility from anyone. I'm just for argument's sake, has Bheki Cele visited those police stations and say, let's do a spot count on you. Like if you run my fish and chips, I'll check my fishes, I'll check my potatoes, I'll check, oh, here I'm being screwed, here my chicken portions are missing, this is missing, my oil is disappearing before it's used. Don't you do that? These institutions need to run like their businesses. It's like when you pay.
This is the problem, Floyd. So with the previous amnesty, right, there was massive back and forths about, and I'm going to address the comment section in a minute. There was a massive amount of back and forths about, which police stations are safe and suitable for even running this amnesty, because there were massive concerns from the portfolio committee level about the guns being stolen previously and then sold to gangsters. And the SAPs came to them with a list of nearly 50 police stations where they said, we've identified these 50 stations as being massive problems, that we cannot trust them at all to even handle amnesty guns. Now, 50 police stations is a massive number of stations for the SAPs to go, here's 50 of them. As far as we're concerned, you can't go near these stations with guns because we're concerned there's a high risk of these guns getting stolen. Then all of a sudden, a few weeks later, they reduced that number of stations that they were about from 50 to down to like 3. Now, what suddenly changed or improved in that 40? There's 2 things to this. Firstly, it indicates to me that the SAPs have absolutely no idea pertaining to what internal controls and systems should look like or even are. And And secondly, I think they grossly misrepresent the scale of the problem. Also, third thing, most importantly, before I forget, they were wholly resistant to any form of independent civilian oversight on the previous amnesty, even though that was a baked-in feature to the previous, like, whole bunch of them. So we have less transparency, less accountability, and I just want to segue us away from the gun conversation quickly. The reason that I'm so adamant that the crime stats are going to continue to worsen is because one of the primary things that is supposed to keep crime in check, good, effective policing, doesn't exist and has significantly deteriorated over the years. Every single day, I have policemen in one way or another contact me via social media to tell me how awful it is working where they work, that they can't trust their colleagues, that the system has broken down, and that they're desperate for work in the private sector, for which fortunately there are a lot. But we've had a lot of good policemen leave stations. They're being replaced by fresh recruits who aren't learning from good cops. So there's a whole sort of learning culture and institutionalized knowledge that have gone missing with this brain drain that is just picking up speed. And there are solutions for this. Like, spoiler alert, if you don't want to hear it now and you want to wait for later down the stream, the solution is that the SAPS actually needs to be shut down and disbanded and be replaced with a complete system of local level, provincial, municipal, county level policing altogether. But more on that later. So we have a failing police system led by a minister of police that's I don't have the correct words to describe what Becky Taylor is. You
A
probably do.
primary school teacher.
No, I've met primary school teachers, Floyd, that are amazing people. They're competent, they're passionate, they're intelligent. They know what they're doing. This guy is a narcissistic, power drunk tin pot dictator with like an axe to grind. I don't like. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes now, but
It,
you tell
it,
me your side of this.
it goes back to cadre deployment, nothing much. You understand? It's not, people are not being put in post because they have qualifications, because they have experience, but people are placed there because they know so and so. You understand? If you look at our Minister of Police, he's nothing but I don't know, there's no difference between him and Figil and Baluna. They celebrity wannabes. They go to a scene and they post, and all of that. Look at our infrastructure, the rail system. It's been vandalized. It's gonna cost how much? How much? I don't even know how much it's gonna. And some of these infrastructures will never get to be what they used to be. There's actually no money for that. And I mean, why are ministers not contributing to all political parties' salary struggles? People don't have money there. People have put you there. So why don't you go and say, okay, we're gonna give 10% of our income back to our movement. We've got a problem. People don't care, so nobody cares. Nobody gives a damn about. If they don't care about their very own, would you they give a damn about me and you? No, it won't happen. So
Exactly.
that's the problem that we're faced with.
Just for everyone watching, this is the part of the stream where we're unpacking the scale of the problem and we're just giving additional info. We are a solutions orientated stream. We're going to tell you what you can and should consider doing in the second half, which is in the next like 10 minutes or so. But for now, I just want to create between myself and Floyd clarity about the scale of and since this is not a family show, I can swear the scale of the clusterfuck that faces us and stares us as passionate South Africans that care very deeply about our safety and the people we care about in the eye. Can I just add some additional elements into how bad it is? Because everyone looks at the Zamas and the tavern shootings and like, oh my gosh, mass shootings, it's like America. That's not a mass shooting, guys. That's a mafia-style attack done by a group of organized criminals, in this case, Zamas, for economic gain. What exactly the motivation driver there was, I'm not 100% sure. I don't have that information, but that is atypical of what it was. And when it's no different to what the construction mafia does, it's no different to what the taxi mafia does. Now, there's a family on the East Coast called the Getaba family. They're the big taxi mafia. Now, they're brothers. Okay, Becky Taylor is in big with these guys. They own, one of the brothers owns about 80 security companies. Only half of those security companies, I think, are even CERA registered. They get guns issued to them on Section 20 licenses in the space of 2 days. 2 days, okay? The reason why this happens is because they've captured Provincial Flash, they've captured senior cops inside the CFR, they've captured their local CERA. If the CERA inspectors pitch up to do inspections on these security companies, they're either turned away or no shit shot at. So you have a full-blown criminal capture of the regulators. They get away with this because they have political protection in running this racket, because high-ranking politicians are profiting off this chaos. That is why we sit in the situation we sit. And the solution, I'm going to give the audience the next couple of minutes to think of what they think I'm going to say about the solution. But we need to realize that crime has become in South Africa very much a political problem, because there is gain for people with political power from criminal activity that's disproportionate. Sorry, Floyd. Your thoughts on that, and maybe unpack a bit what you see in your community, because actually, for the viewers that have forgotten who Floyd is, tell us where you're at, Floyd, what your challenges are, where you are, and what you've seen.
Okay, so from Soweto, Diepkloof, and there we've got a group of guys, many groups that would do some community work whereby we bust trap houses to see what drugs are there and all of that. We've been in situations whereby we've taken those drugs, and we can't even take those drugs to the SAPs. We know what's going to happen to them. They're going to go back on the streets and all of that. And with all those operations, you cannot do that without a firearm. You find in these trap houses, there's guns, there's knives, there's sticks, there's golf sticks, there's baseball bats. So you've got to be safe. And you've got to have like a pepper spray, you've got to have handcuffs, you've got to have your pistol, you've got to have your shotgun, whatever that you do. So that's what we do. But why? And this simply because there isn't policing. If police were there, they know these things. They get paid from these trap houses, so policing doesn't exist. So the community has decided to take the whole matter into their own hands. And that's what we do, and to try and help where we can help as members of the community. And and Diepkloof, it's not where I live. That's where I grew up. So where I live, there's no problems. So I go there, and I always go there and help and see. This is what you can do. If there was no collapse in the whole system, the local clinic in Diepkloof, people don't go there. They come to my clinic here. Why? The service is quicker here, service is better here, everything is better here. I'll tell you now, where politicians live, it's not ANC wards, it's DA wards. So where they stay, it's not. It's the truth. So you don't even have faith in your own ward. So we have got that type of a problem where they live in wards that are not theirs, where there's security, where there's boom gates, where there's visibility, where there's access to anything. There's access to internet, there's access to libraries, there's access to, and where they from, where their voters are, there's nothing of those things. There's nothing. I look at that. I go in the morning. I go to the township. I look at the business in township. Township business suffers. People are selling the same item. People. This one has fat cakes. This one is where they're sitting next to each other. Nobody goes and teaches them about entrepreneurship and all of that. And our people are what? They've gone to that mentality of handovers, and they've been taught, we'll build your house. We'll give you free education. We'll give you this. What is that? Don't give me stuff. Teach me stuff. Let me be independent. Let me be independent. Let me be safe. I'm your.
Have that, Floyd, because the moment you're independent, the moment you're resilient and self-reliant, you're no longer dependent on the government for handouts to live. meaning that you're not controllable. So
Yes.
obviously we can't have independent, free-thinking, entrepreneurial, thriving township South Africans, because why would they vote ANC then? Ever
Yeah.
again?
It,
You know?
it's promises, But Gideon, can you really promise me the sweat that you're wearing now, and then promise me the same thing next week, and then I still believe you, and then you promise me the same thing next month, and I still believe you. You understand? At some point, I need to say, to hell with Gideon. I'm gonna go buy this myself, and then you see me with it.
Exactly.
That's independence. You understand? Uh, people want things, but people don't want to work for things. We're so used to be take it, go. I cannot be in that position. I've got kids that I need to protect. I've got kids that I need to feed, educate, and all of that. You understand? And what do you then choose? Who's going to protect my family should anything happen? Now I'm my first responder. There's the door. What am I going to do? I'm sitting here with my firearm. I'm be the first person to respond here now. And before you
Exactly.
enter this complex, you're going to have to start with a security guard. You understand? And before you
You
come
have
to me, yes.
exactly.
So,
So
but my mother, wherever she is, she's got no firearm, no police, nothing. She's gonna rely on boiling her hot kettle there to splash whoever comes in. And once you splash once, you splash, you need to boil again. So she doesn't have a line of kettles waiting, boiling to fight crime. And then there's also an element of buying electricity. You understand? So with my
and
Glock 22, I'm sitting here. I cannot buy electricity. I'll give you electricity as you enter the house.
so here's the side to this actual discussion, Floyd, that I haven't confronted yet, and I think what you've just said made it hit home a bit. And I'm going to go through, guys. I'm really going to get through the comment section in a bit. I promise. The next 3 minutes. There can be nothing more undignifying for a free citizen than being told by your own government, I will protect you, which is impossible. I've did a whole tweet thread today on why, or yesterday, I can't remember. I'm getting old. Why it's absolutely impossible for the government to protect you. It's at an individual level. It is not possible for them to do that. The government will equally never carry direct accountability for them failing in that responsibility if you're stupid enough to outsource it to them. If people burst through your door right now and they rob you or they kill you, the only person who's negatively affected by that directly is you, not the government administrator who's responsible for community safety. They probably don't even know who you are. So you have a government that promises to keep you safe, that miserably fails at keeping you safe. And I mean, this is not a new thing. 4 years ago, October 2018, Kehla Sitole, when he was still the Minister of Police, told Parliament it is impossible for the SAPS to fulfill its constitutional mandate. Nothing has improved since then. It's only gotten markedly worse. We have one Vispol SAPS officer on duty for every 3,077 citizens, where the minimum United Nations rate of police officers to residents is 1 for every 350. Our rate is 10 times worse than it should be, the minimum requirement. What I'm trying to say in a long-winded way, folks, that if you have just woken up and you've not been paying attention to crime stats, to reality, to anything, is that it's absolutely bloody impossible for the government to keep you and your family safe. It's not going to happen. There are changes we can make that'll have a long-term impact somewhere downstream, but for now, the answer is with you and yours. The second point of what makes that undignifying is when the same government who so chronically fails at keeping you safe says to you, by the way, you're not allowed to own a gun for self-defense because there's no good reason to do it. Becky Taylor said it. Jeremy fucking Veery, the man who went to court to get his protection detail back after he was fired from the cops, has the balls to tell people while hiding behind bodyguards that self-defense isn't a reason to own a gun, because Gun-Free South Africa now pays his checks because he's now their new latest little PR lapdog. And and then stuff like that just disgusts me. But we're at the halfway mark. We're going to talk solutions. I'm just going to do a quick ad break, in the sense of, if you like the show, if you like what we do, if you like these topics and would like to pay for our internet, you can snap scan us, or if SnapScan is too plebeian for you, you can zapper us, or you could do none of them and just like and share the stream, and that's also really cool. And I'm Floyd. Let's go through some of the comments quickly to catch up, and then we're going to talk solutions, because you've kind of already gotten there. It is indeed a salmon sweater, Nick. Thanks for noticing. I'm glad you're. Nick's a good friend. Glad he's not colorblind. Good evening, Maggie. It was good to see you again. Indeed, Graham, it is a bleak conversation, and unfortunately kind of has to be, but it is going to be a solutions-oriented conversation as well. Richard Lemmer, my conspiracy theory is that it's all part of the plan. They looted the government dry now to make it ungovernable so as not to be held accountable, which I think has certain merits to it. Jean-Martin Clark, good evening, sir. Good to see you again. Daniel Buerta, what is happening on this new bill that is coming in, where criminals now having the right to enter my property and I have no say or no right to defend myself, my family, without declaring to the criminal that he's trespassing? So there seems to be a lot of different takes on the content of this bill, which is already problematic because that indicates it's very ambiguously written. We had a Dear South Africa stream on it last night. It's on the Dear SA YouTube channel. You can go find it there. We're also going to get a legal expert in to give us a bit more context and depth on it, but it's open for public comment. And if you disagree with it, now's the time to make your voice heard on that campaign, because everyone's voice makes a difference. Melanie Todd. Hi, Melanie. Hi, everyone. Just getting a firearm license renewed is terrifying. It is, but it's less terrifying now thanks to the Fidelity court case, SCA ruling that really takes the sting out of that a bit. Indeed, Bekele will never check because he has an agenda, as we discussed. Indeed, as long as the ANC are in power, it's not going to change. How can there be can they be learning when the Minister of Police is a toddler? I'm not even, what, this. We did describe a US sheriff type system, or if being American is a bit too on the nose, you can just call it like a Swiss federalized canton policing system, whatever works for you. Melody's a primary school teacher, Floyd. We just upset her. Thank you for upsetting one of our viewers. No, I'm kidding.
You're different, Melanie.
Always. And Demiso, good evening to you. Melanie, again, with a truth bomb self-defense. I'm tired of expecting some cavalry to save me, because realistically, they won't. And we'll get to that in a moment. Pule, it's always good to see Pule. Flip, I haven't seen this guy in a long time. I don't think even a new government can change the SAPS. It is way too corrupt, and I am inclined to agree with you, sir. And I think that's why the solutions lie in a very different new system. No one can forget Floyd. And Floyd, Melanie asks if you're busy drinking beer.
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm getting through these comments as fast as I can, guys. I promise. Hello, Julie and Melanie. Best believe, though, that streaming this or participating is putting us in a slightly dodgy position with regards to personal safety. There are always risks and reward trade-offs, right? So now we've caught up with the comments, Floyd. Let's talk solutions. You're a man that's been directly involved in addressing the issue of violent confrontational crime, not only in your community, but in other communities that are close to your heart. And some of them have significant violent crime problems. And as policing is collapsing in on itself at a national level, and especially a local level, what do you recommend people do for start?
If you remember, in July last year, when the looting started in KZN and it went to Gauteng and eventually it went the whole country, most police stations close their doors. Can you rely on somebody for safety? Someone who closes their door and say, I can't handle this? The answer is no. If you remember, there were some SANDF soldiers who died in Central African Republic. They were not defending South Africa or anything. They went there to defend somebody's business interest. So that's where the problem is. So My advice is very simple. Go for training, start groups, get your competences. Can you imagine if you have 10 firearms in one Soweto street? 10 firearms in one Soweto street. And how many streets are there? Then you have 20 firearms in another street and 20 firearms. And then let's say in my section, my zone, in zone 2, you'll end up having maybe 1,000 firearms in zone 2. That's a safe society. An armed society is a safe society. Get armed. Just work on things. Don't be taken for granted. Don't be taken for a ride. You need to get up and say, "This, I'm not getting value for money here." Protect your taxpayers. And there's a saying that I like to say, which is the forest was disappearing, but the trees kept on voting for the X. Change. That's all you need. We're in a democracy. If this doesn't work, move to this. If this doesn't work, you actually, it's quite simple. Uh, Go for what works for you, even if you're not sure that it's going to work, but at least give it a try. And then we're talking something. But in terms of safety, firearms is the first thing. Policing in your own policing is the first thing. Holding the police accountable, holding Begitala accountable, signing those petitions on change.org, signing those petitions on DRSA. Don't sit there and say and have a beer at a tavern and say it's not working, like you're watching a game of Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs. No, do something. You've got to move.
That's
You can't. It's that
that's
simple.
the
Yeah.
key. It's being involved. That's been my biggest gripe with a lot of South African society is, and I've said it a million times. Well, exaggeration, not a million times, but I've said it a lot. That apathy among citizens is a far greater threat to our freedom, our democracy, everything we hold dear than tyrannical politicians. And it's a hesitancy to become involved. Stuff you mentioned right now are on point. People can start with simple things. Get to know your SAP station commander for one. Because just because SAPS is at a national level is a complete fuck up doesn't mean that your station level cops aren't good people. There are a great many good policemen still in the service, and they are trying really hard to fight crime. And they are being sabotaged by their leadership. They're being sabotaged by their corrupt criminal colleagues. And in some cases, they're being sabotaged even by their own communities. So get to know your station commander, get to know your station cops. Become sort of familiar with who they are. Understand the crime situation in your precinct where you live. Those crime statistics are mostly freely available, but you can pay 50 Rand and get really good detailed breakdowns of them. So the first thing is build knowledge, build relationships with your neighbors. How many people
Good.
watching the stream tonight know who their neighbors actually are? How often have you had tea and cake or coffee and cook sisters or whatever the Soweto version of that is?
Sit around a fire.
Yeah.
Sit around the fire in winter. And let's sit on our street. We're gonna sit from 9. We're gonna take it till 11, and then the next group is gonna take it from 11. It's gonna take it till 1. Do that. Go to your local taxi association and say we need funds for reflectors. We need funds for whistles. We need funds for pepper sprays. We need fun. Go to your local petrol stations. Go there and know those people. Go to your schools, walk people to local businesses and say, guys, we are dying here. This is how can we help you? This is who we are. Protect yourself as taxpayers. It's very easy. If you're not happy with what SARS is doing, what do? You lodge a dispute. If you're not happy with what the SARS are doing, what do? You should lodge a dispute. And visit them consistently every day. If it doesn't happen, go to IPIC. There's always a way. Just don't get tired. Don't lose hope.
More important, build networks. Because
Correct.
within a network, and this is what we saw in July last year, is we saw networks and community structures that were never designed for dealing with violent riots. really step up to the plate super effectively. They could have done a lot better if they were better resourced, better coordinated in some cases. But you know what? They did really well without having those advantages. And we are not in a time of a state of emergency right now. We have time to build networks. You start by securing your home and your family. Then you move to securing your street by getting to know your neighbors and building a structure with them, because they're going to be the closest people to you and you're going to be the closest person to them in the event of things going really horribly wrong. And then once your neighbors are organized, you link up with the streets adjacent to you and you build an organic neighborhood system. And it's harder than it sounds, because I've tried organizing similarly by me and I'm still struggling with it, because for the most part people are apathetic. They think they're safer than they really are and they don't understand, but they're willing to complain. And getting people from complaining to action is quite difficult. But I think once you've persisted enough and you've gotten them to move across that line, you can see action. And it's about more than just guns. It's about communication. It's about medical support. It's about awareness. It's about knowing what's normal and abnormal in your neighborhood, so you pick things up before the bad stuff happens, because there's always indicators beforehand. Demiso has a great story. This morning there was an attempted house burglary in our street. I was the first person to arrive. I wish my license was approved because I got shot at. Likely two of my neighbors arrived and returned fire. Jeepers, dude! So you actually took fire. Crime is so bad that we have to approach armed criminals with firearms, and this is the reality in most South African communities. Floyd, similar story where you live. I know you've had some crazy things happen in your side of town that you've shared with me.
Yeah. So if you look at the whole thing, I just want to ask. We're talking about people getting themselves organized, and my question to people, whoever could be watching, how was the apartheid government defeated? It wasn't because the ANC or the IFP or anybody. It was the people that defeated the apartheid government. And why? They formed themselves, they organized themselves to say, this not under our watch. It took time, but eventually it happened. So anything can happen to anybody. Nobody is irreplaceable. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. That is the thing. And you don't even have to overthink this. Okay. I've got a structure for community safety. You're welcome to email me or contact me about it. And I'm happy to have discussions with people about it. In fact, I might discuss it on the stream in the very near future. But you are best placed to know what your immediate challenges in your community are pertaining safety and security, and kind of what sort of structure you need to address that. The key thing here is to not sit on your hands and expect the SAPs to do it. And Joseph, you are correct. Private security companies do a far better job than SAPs in this regard. However, they have significant limitations. And I'm seeing the same problem in the area where I live. People heavily rely on unnamed security company to always respond and solve problems that they've got two vehicles in a neighborhood that's I'm not exactly 100% sure what the square kilometerage coverage is, but it's humongous. And they think that's going to be good enough. People have unrealistic expectations regarding private security, and they have unrealistic expectations about how violent criminal encounters actually happen, as well as what their own ability is. So I think, and please throw questions at us, because we're kind of coming to the end of the discussion thing. I'm going to give some tips that I've got, and Floyd, then I want you to give some tips so we can give some closing wisdom comments here. But start with yourself. A couple of things you need to do. Everyone needs to do. Physical fitness. We're never fit enough, and you never will be fit enough, but do something. Even if you just run 2 kilometers 3 times a week, or if you've got a weightlifting routine or a functional fitness routine or something, but do something to get fitter, because your body isn't going to perform at a higher level under stress than it would with you in a nice environment in a gym. If you're gassing out after just walking on the treadmill for 5 minutes, you're probably not fit enough to fight for your life. The second thing is cultivate a good sense of situational awareness. Basic stuff. When you leave the house, don't get sucked into your phone at the red light. Be aware of what's going on in your driveway and up and down your street before you drive out of your house. Wait for the gate to close behind you when you arrive back home in the afternoon and the evening. Check if you're being followed, if there's suspicious vehicles behind you, near you, if there's somebody waiting perhaps behind the bushes in your front yard. Be alert. Look out for things that don't belong. Okay. Situational awareness and physical fitness will save more lives than people with guns ever will. That doesn't detract from the fact that the gun is a supremely important defensive tool. But your primary focus is to avoid those confrontations. You can't avoid them to evade them. And if you can't evade them to fight your way out of them effectively to the point that you prevail, not just survive. My third point is develop, and this is actually more important. Well, it's equally important, but it's vitally important, is develop a combative mindset. It's a mindset that you're willing to do whatever it takes to prevail over your aggressors. There was a video on the that I haven't managed to download. It's on Twitter. I'll tag it, about guys on the N2 stopping a motorist with a blockade. This motorist is driving a 2-ton vehicle. All he has to do is smash these guys at 40 k's an hour. He will not be disabling his vehicle. He will certainly be getting them out of his way. How are you letting pedestrians stop your vehicle and rob you? Like, your vehicle is a weapon, and if you believe your life is under threat and you can't avoid, and this guy's trying to jump in front of you with a rock, then do what you need to do to get out of that situation. If it involves hitting him, then hit him. That is not a failure of the car. The car didn't fail the person. Their skills didn't fail them. They didn't have the right mindset. And this is again, you can have all the tools in the universe. If you don't have the right attitude pertaining the value of your life and what you're willing to do to protect it, you're probably going to fail. So fitness, mindset, situational awareness, those three things are worth gold. The tools, important as well, but maybe a bit less so. And we'll talk about training and skills on another stream. But Floyd, what do you reckon? Have I talked complete shit, or do you have some additional wisdom to give us?
You're spot on. There's no shit there. It's just people need to learn these things. And to add to that, I would say have a WhatsApp group in your own community. Have a WhatsApp group. There's a friend of mine who's just moved from one neighborhood to the other, and he says when they post something on their WhatsApp group, the response is much quicker than the actual private security. So that tells you. So have WhatsApp groups, talk about these things. If you capture a criminal, take a picture of him, circulate it so that people know who they're dealing with. So you're not fighting these clowns that you don't know. And then people that are walking, if we can drink at a park, at a pub in groups, I'm sure we can work together in groups and walk in groups. So if we're going to work, we know there's a 6 o'clock group, there's a 6:30 group, there's a 7 o'clock group. Just that you're not alone in terms of being a victim of crime. Instead of criminals ganging up on you, gang up on them as well. Get stuff that doesn't require licenses. A pocket knife, it doesn't require a license. A pepper spray, it doesn't require a license. Get cable ties. If you apprehend the guy, you can actually tie him down until not subs, but until you kill him. So stuff like that. Get your local businesses involved. There's tuck shops, there's puzzle shops, whatever that's called. Go to them and say, look here, we've seen you open at 6, you close at 10, but we've seen the risk and we want to be around you to protect you. Would really appreciate 100 Rand contribution per month or 50 Rand contribution per month. Nothing stops them helping. Regular community meetings. Look at every community should have its own SWOT analysis. Every community.
Big time. Very important.
That's that. This is our strength. This is our weakness. Just all of that, put it down together. And even when you have these community meetings, when you have your own SWOT analysis as a community, and the day you do something as a community, you can still go back to the SAPs and say, hey, we did this. We tried this with you. We've tried this with you. You didn't help us. We've done it ourselves.
Yeah.
You know?
And
That's yeah,
this
that's
is
it.
a very important points to add to everything you just said. I just want to put Melanie's comment on the screen. Very, very, very vital,
Correct.
correct
Yes.
point. This first aid course, you can do BLS, that is basic life support. That's primarily focused on CPR. There's some really good courses there. And then in addition to that, I recommend a Stop the Bleed course.
Correct.
That deals
Mel
with,
is a great teacher. Sorry, Gideon. Mel,
yeah,
you're a great teacher.
we have to give her a shout out. The second thing is community WhatsApp groups. Great idea. Caveat to those, requires strong moderation. People from when I was a very small kid and my granddad had a farm watch on the radios, the amount of shit people used to talk over those channels when they are actually reserved exclusively for the use of security issues and emergencies is incredible. And that tradition is prolific over cultures, religions, age groups. That is the one thing we all have in common in this country is we will abuse emergency channels for idle chit chat and nonsense. So if you have a community WhatsApp group, pick someone with the strong, steely nerves and get them to moderate to make sure everything stays on topic and that there is an element of discipline and decorum maintained on there so that it doesn't become a nuisance channel. Because the moment your emergency channel becomes a nuisance channel, guess what? Oh my gosh, I'm in deep shit, come help. It's like, oh, it's that channel that everyone talks nonsense on. Ignore, don't pay attention to it. And that's a baked-in failure.
There has to be
There was
discipline.
big time. It's a major pitfall for many community groups is not maintaining that. There was a third thing, Floyd, that you mentioned here near the end about what people should do. And I had an additional point.
Working in groups and regular community meetings, SWOT analysis.
Oh, the SWOT analysis. Guys, that's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay, it's basically a big picture overview of your scenario, threats to you personally, your community, what's relevant to your risk profile, really. This stuff is important because if you are dealing with a combative, obstructive, narcissistic station commander or local law enforcement element that wants to nail you because you are showing them up as opposed to building a relationship with you pertaining community safety, then you've covered your ass. Because then when you start doing things that are eroding their authority, which will be the accusation you're hit with, or undermining them, you can go up the chain of command to their superiors and say, no, here is everything we've documented. Here's the center of what we've structured our community response, our mutual assistance group, whatever we want to call it, neighborhood watch around. And everything we've done, has been done according to this sort of linear trajectory. These are the the rationale behind it, the reasons behind it. These are the rules of engagement, so to speak. And that would make life for any person trying to give you crap for protecting your community humongously harder. The overwhelming majority of people that get in trouble for protecting themselves get in trouble because their admin's bad. That's really what it's about. It's not because of what they do. It's because of how they back up what they do. So,
But it also leads to laziness. The guy doesn't want to put a statement. Guys don't have time.
Yeah. So if you're in a violent confrontation, you defend yourself, always issue a statement. Always, always, always. Like it just, even if it goes nowhere, it covers your ass. Many people will have a lot less grief. Yeah, I suppose we have 5 minutes. Quick one. SAPS restructuring. In my opinion, as previously mentioned, SAPS is unsavable. What is doable is you demolish that organization. You replace it with a federalized policing system right down to community level. And the reason for this is very simple. It is impossible to centrally manage policing in a country as diverse as South Africa. And by diverse, I mean the policing requirements in Khayelitsha versus the policing requirements in Skukuza versus the policing requirements in Philippolis versus eThekwini versus Joburg CBD versus the West Coast versus the Eastern Cape rural or urban are hugely different requirements. You can't centrally plan this from a central office in Pretoria or a central office in a provincial capital. You can, however, manage this very effectively at local level simply because the local level guys know best what their challenges are, what their needs are, how to address those needs. And guess what? They have the biggest amount of skin, or the only skin in the game. The dude in Pretoria has no skin in the game of what happens in Bitterfontein. He probably can't even find it on the map. The people living there, however, have skin in the game all the time. It's in their best interest for things to work there. Floyd, as we're going to shut this thing down, your thoughts on how to structure police to community level, accountability, all this stuff?
Look, there isn't policing. We've got to be our own police. There's bigger problems there on top, and our police force is busy fighting political battles. That's where the biggest focus is. And the voters are none of those concerned. They're not a police matter. So you're good when people need your vote, and you're bad when they need to actually protect you as a voter. You're not worth it, you know. So you need to wake up and do that yourself. Restructuring of the police force, yeah, I fully agree. The whole thing needs to die, and I don't know who's gonna resurrect me, hate it, and then come and say, "Here we are. This thing is back." And you know what's the biggest problem with our policing? There's one problem. People take it as a job. It's not a job. It's a calling. It's like being a teacher. It's being a doctor, being a nurse. It's a calling. It's not a job. No matter how much money you earn there, you're there for one thing: to serve. You should be able to walk on the streets and people say to you, Gideon, are you from here? You look scared. Can we help you? The police.
Yeah.
Instead, they're the ones who will rob you, I'm telling you.
That is part and parcel of the issue. And Floyd, that's a beautiful summary of the differences. It's not a job. It's a calling that has become a career. And unfortunately, the way the SAPS is led, the way it's structured, that's discouraged. It's wholly discouraged. We see it in how people are promoted internally. We see how they're treated internally. We see the infighting, the intrigues, the politics, the criminality. You can't rescue a sick culture from itself, but you can shut it down, and you can replace it with something better. And I think, the group's existence is reminded to be vigilant. I don't want to see violent footage if it's not something in my area. Simple. Oh, sorry. This was an earlier comment about the pitfall of community WhatsApp groups becoming fear porn, which again illustrates why strong moderation is needed on those things. Sorry, Floyd, I interrupted you there.
Yeah, I can't even remember what I want to say. So we need to get up and just, nobody's gonna do it for us. Nobody's coming to save you. You've got to save yourself. People need to wake up, make different choices. That's it. That's all.
Well, this is a familiar thing we always say on these streams, but I think we're going to keep saying it with the hope that it sinks into more and more people, that it penetrates through to them. Here's the caveat, folks. You're always the first responder to your personal emergency, whether it's a crime scene, whether it's a medical emergency. What you do in those precious seconds after the shit hits the fan can determine the outcome, whether it's good or bad, whether you save a life or whether you lose a life, including your own. Nobody is coming to save you. The other responders who aren't the first responders are minutes away, if not hours. And there's an additional cliche that ties into this, but it's true. So, and they say is when seconds matter, the police are only minutes away. We can repurpose that to say when seconds matter, everyone else are minutes away. You are it. You have to do what you can, where you are, with what you have, which includes your skill set. So my advice is develop the right mindset, get the right training, develop those skills, build the knowledge base, get armed, and change the way you view your life in the sense of you're not a passenger or a victim on this train. You have a steering wheel. You can drive this thing. You can drive your own destiny. Don't just accept shit because it's happening, because then you're just a victim waiting for something to happen to you. The other thing you can be is you can be a responder that takes it as it comes and you adapt to it and you refuse to say it's just like Energizer, never say die, and you don't surrender. Floyd, last comments from you.
Yeah, people need to wake up, watch your surroundings, check. It's like when you in your own house, take around your own house, walk the yard, have a dog, do stuff that can actually try and help you. There's nobody who's coming to save you. That's that. So let's just wake up. Let's protect women. Let's protect children. Nobody's gonna do it for us.
Exactly. And we're hoping to, well, look, just to keep everyone in mind where I am, I regularly stream on the DRSA channel. I regularly stream with Big Daddy Liberty. I'm on his show again tomorrow night, discussing crime stats again. I'm regularly with the Council for Future Conflict. They're an American-based group on YouTube. They're fun. I stream with them often. And then I try to stream here. So I'm definitely going to try and spend a lot more time on my own channel with guys like Floyd, with you in the comments, try to bring you real talk, real discussions, bring Whiskey Friday back, all that sort of stuff. I apologize for being away from my own channel as much as I have. It's been a bit of a crazy couple of months, but it's a lot of good things that have been happening. And you know what? We'll talk training. We'll talk what you can do. We'll talk solutions. Floyd, thank you for your wisdom tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you to everyone in the comment section who's watched this. If you like us, please subscribe. And Floyd, you have a wonderful evening, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks to the viewers. Thanks for the time.
I hope we get to do lots more of this soon. So folks, stay safe, look after yourselves and your family, be positive, be proactive, and embrace being your own first responder. See you soon, definitely next week. Take care and bye-bye.